Okay, good morning, everyone, and welcome. For those of you who were just on Chirag's call a minute ago, thanks for coming over here. For those of you who are not on his call, he's now doing Wake Up Wednesdays at 9:15 every Wednesday. It's a free 15 minutes for all of our clients, part of the community, as well as anybody else who's an agent, maybe a friend of yours or somebody else that you work with. So certainly feel free to show up for the Wake Up Wednesday calls at 9:15, a quick 15 minutes, free to everybody in the industry. We'd love to see you there as well. As Chirag said, we're always trying to respond to what you're telling us. And so this was an opportunity for him to provide a quick bit of guidance or inspiration on Wednesdays to kind of carry people through the week. So delighted that you're here today. My name is David Severance. If you don't know me, I'm one of the coaches here at Leadership at Chirag Shah Coaching. So delighted that you're with us for this morning's session. So today we're going to be talking about the fourth of the 10 agent success principles. So I suggested when we started this a few weeks ago that you create a separate piece of paper to just write each of the success principles down. So we're going to fill out number 4 today at the end, towards the end of the call. We're going to be talking about the topic of organization. So let me just ask you to put into the chat, how many of you feel that your business is sufficiently organized to operate at peak effectiveness? If yes, put yes. If no, put no, please. No, 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 to an extent. No, 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 no. Yes, but not peak. Got it. Yes. Terrific. So that's kind of what I expected. When Chirag and I take in a new coaching client, we always ask them a lot about their business. And we ask them, what parts of the business do they feel good about? What parts of the business do you not feel so good about? What do you want to change about your business? And the most common answer that we ever ask is, or the most common answer that we ever get is, I want more structure. Everybody throws that word around, structure, structure, structure. Well, we talked about that a couple of weeks ago. We were talking about the importance of routines. We were talking about the importance of habits, and that's certainly a form of structure. Another form of structure is organization. And so if you say to me, my business isn't perfectly organized to be perfectly successful, then the question is, what's getting in the way there, right? It's probably not because you don't know that you need to be organized. It's probably that it's just difficult. And so we're going to talk a little bit today about the different areas of your business that need to be organized. And I want each of you to think about which one of these areas is the one that's kind of problematic for you. It is hard to be organized in all areas of your business, but anyone can do it with sufficient attention and, some tactics and follow through and all that stuff. It's not like it's rocket science, but it does take some effort. So I'm going to share a couple of slides on organization in general first, and how you can kind of think about what you need to be focusing on in your business. And then we'll talk a little bit about where you struggle. I'm not going to give you the magical thing that's going to allow you to organize your business in less than 5 minutes. If you came onto the call thinking, great, I'm going to learn how to be organized and I don't have to do any work and magically everything in my life will be so organized and perfect, I'm afraid it's not that easy. But we are happy to kind of introduce a few topics here today, including the principle itself, which is on one of the later slides, as kind of a test as to whether you're truly organized or not. And then we're going to, and then we'll talk a little bit about, your particular struggles. And yes, Miriam, it is too bad. If anything that we dealt with here at CSC could be fixed in 5 minutes, it would be. All of you would have that part of your business down. You wouldn't need a coach. You wouldn't need anything. You'd be killing it every single year. But obviously, life is not that simple. It's not that clean. It's not that easy. And so this is why we're here to talk through the challenges that we face and the opportunities that we have. So let me pull up a couple of slides. Why does it pull that one up? Hold on. All right, let's try that again. There we go. Okay. Topic of organization today. Everyone understands that part of success in business is being organized. But what does organized mean? What needs to be organized? And most importantly, what is it that you're doing or not doing that's preventing you from being sufficiently organized? First question. What is what is like the fundamental reason that organization matters? Well, here's one simple truth about organization. If you're properly organized, you're going to save time, align resources, and reduce stress. But lack of organization is costing you. It's costing you time, it's costing you money, and it's creating stress. Now, we can all understand this, right? It's quite straightforward. There's parts of your life and your business where you're saying, man, I think I'm wasting some money here. I think I'm wasting some time here. And yes, I'm stressed out because of X, Y, Z. What we don't always recognize is that a big piece of that is actually strictly due to how organized we are. So what is it that you need to organize? Well, you know that you might need to organize information about your clients. That's what we have CRMs for. That's true. But if we make a simple list of the various areas of your business that need to be organized or benefit from being organized, there's a whole bunch of them. Prospect and client information, that needs to be organized. And we have a tool for that called a CRM. Prospect client interactions. You've got thousands of interactions over the course of a year with current clients or current prospects. Those have a way of being organized. Time, how do we manage our time? We have a tool for that called a calendar, which many of us don't use as effectively as we might. Finances, we have things called budgets. Do you guys operate off of a budget, or you just kind of play it by ear? That's okay, but there's other better ways to do things. A big one is processes. When people say they want organization to me, or when they say they want structure to me, what they're looking for is a simple, predictable clarity about processes. This is how we work with a seller. This is how we work with a buyer. This is how we handle the pitch, something like that. And having those things can help you move through those processes in a predictable way that creates a predictably positive experience or impact on the person that you're working with. And this is important for projecting your brand. Intended outcomes. If I were to ask you, what are the top 3 goals of your particular business? Could you just say them to me off the top of your head? Or would you just throw out something so generic like make as much money as I can, or satisfy my clients? Are your goals any more specific than that? I want to help 61 people buy or sell a house this year. Or I want to hit $6 million in sales, or whatever. How specific and clear are our goals and priorities? Are they really organized in our mind? And do they contribute to the actions that are in my calendar on a regular basis or not? And for example, if you work on a team, it's also important to be clear about what your colleague inputs are. We need to be organized as a team as to who's going to input what, how information gets shared, when do handoffs happen, how should handoffs should happen, who needs to be included in certain meetings and why, who doesn't. All these factors come in a team setting, which is obviously another layer of complexity. But same thing applies. We need to be organized. So what is it that gets in the way of our organization? See if any of these things apply to you. These are the most common factors that promote a lack of organization or allow us to be in a state of non-organization. First of all, lack of clarity. If we're not clear about what our goals are in our own mind, if we're not clear about what our processes are, if we're not clear about what our roles are, then no one else is ever going to be clear either. And it's costing us because all of that fuzziness around the edges means that we don't necessarily know what's the right action to take at this time, or we don't know how to direct a particular person to do something in the right way at the right moment in the right way. Secondly, procrastination. I mean, this is a huge one, folks. We hear it over and over. People come to us and they've been in business for 10 years. And I say, okay, great. Where are your checklists? I don't have any. All right. Where's your budget? I don't have one. What are your goals? Well, I'm not really sure. Okay, great. So you've been kind of like bouncing along for 10 years with some success in the business, and there's a great opportunity to find more success by getting more organized. And finally, the other one, this is also a big one, inconsistency. We know that we need to do certain things on a regular basis as habits and routines. Let's, for example, record the conversations that we have with our clients so that we remember what we talked about. Maybe make a note when we need to reach out to them again, something like that. If we're not organized about this stuff, then those particular contacts and the follow-up contacts are not going to be ideal. So think about how any of those relate to your particular experience. If you're suffering from a lack of perfect clarity on any of these aspects we're talking about, or if you sometimes procrastinate, or if you're sometimes inconsistent, chances are you're not as organized as you could be and should be. And if you want success in the business, absolutely, you can go further with this. So what promotes organization? Well, here's some things we need to be thinking about doing. One, we need to spend time in reflection. And this is something that I see most people don't make enough time for in their business, is some scheduled time to just sit back and spend some time thinking about who are we, where are we going, why are we going there, and how will we get there? 4 fundamental strategic questions that we all should have answers to as the leaders of ourselves and our businesses. We need to understand what our goals are and why they're our goals. We need to understand what our brand is. We need to understand what our ideal client is. All of that stuff should be clear in our minds. Secondly, we need to get things down in black and white. I've worked with a lot of clients who have a lot of experience and they have a lot of clarity in their mind, but it's not necessarily written down. They don't use time blocks in their calendars. Maybe they haven't written down their procedures into a set of checklists that other people on the team can understand, or even maybe the clients can understand, something like that. And so there's often an opportunity to write things down that help us, force us to get really clear about what we're thinking about and talking about. Third, do the best you can. Even if you don't have the perfect information or the perfect checklist or the perfect process, or even if now is not the perfect time, there's still something you can do. You know, there's an old expression, do what you can with what you have where you are. And that's something that can go a long way to helping us get more organized. Even if we don't have the perfect system today, we have something that's better than no system, and we can always improve it tomorrow or the next day. And finally, practice consistency. This is a huge one. So many of us get taken out of our routines and our habits. And so, you know, whatever our best laid plans were that could provide the forward motion that we're looking forward to, that we're looking for over time, never comes to pass. Chirag just said on that call a couple of minutes ago, the first thing he said was habits and routines are like the building blocks, right? And we've talked about that here on these calls in the last few weeks. The challenge for many of us is that life happens to us. We get into the office and something happens during that day and we get into reactive mode. Chirag was just mentioning a minute ago, proactive and reactive. That's something he and I talk about a lot. You know, as a leader of your business, whether you're a single person or you lead others, you have the opportunity to lead your business partly through proactive activity and partly through reactive activity. Certain reactive activity is important and necessary. If a client has a problem or a deal runs into a snag, certainly you need to manage that. But if you're always in reactive mode, you're missing a huge chunk of the potential of your business. And so we want to make sure that when you think about your business, you can ask yourself, am I always just reacting to the circumstances of the day? Is my habit to just wake up in the morning, open up my emails or my texts or whatever, and just start reacting to things? Nothing wrong with reacting to things, but you should be a bit more proactive as well. So when you add all these things up, if you're lacking that consistency, if I go back to this previous slide, why is that not going? There we go. If you're lacking clarity here and there, if you're procrastinating from time to time, and if you're inconsistent from time to time, it causes a fundamental underlying lack of organization that comes back costing you time, costing you money, and causing you stress. And so here's a simple way of checking with yourself whether you're organized enough. A very simple principle, and this is what you'll write down. Success principle number 4. If you can't find what you need within 30 seconds, you're not organized enough. If, for example, I see Chelsea on the screen in Westchester, if Chelsea's thinking, oh, yeah, I really ought to call this client such and such Susan in White Plains, and I can't remember when was the last time I talked with Susan and what do we talk about? If you can't get access to that information within 30 seconds, you're not organized enough. Or I see Mark there in Dallas, and if Mark says, well, you know, how many X's did I sell? You know, how much did I sell out of such and such a farm last year? I can't really remember what that was. If you don't have a way of accessing that particular information within 30 seconds, you're missing an opportunity to be organized enough. Or if you have some people on your team and you lead others and, you know, there's some confusion over exactly what your brand is all about. One person thinks that your key values of your organization is, let's say, consistency. And someone else on your team thinks, no, it's service. And so you have this kind of argument going on with your team about what exactly your brand is. You're not organized enough. You should be able to have a conversation within 30 seconds to say, Here's the information that we all need to keep in mind regarding our brand. So ask yourself, where within my business would I need to find some kind of information about my business that would take me more than 30 seconds to find, or maybe I don't have it at all? Chances are there's something in there. So when I pull this slide down in just a minute, I'm going to ask you that, where in your business does this tell you you need to be a little bit more organized? So how do you take action on this? Very simple steps you can take right now. One, after today's call, select one area of your business that you're clear needs to be better organized, and ask yourself a simple question. What has prevented me from being more organized in this area of my business? What is it? Is it procrastination? Is it following through? Is it I'm not clear enough in the first place? What could it be? And then think through, okay, so what's the barrier there? What's the gap that's missing? What needs to happen for me to get over that hump? And most importantly, knowing that it'll take a little work to actually make a shift here, how will I handle that? It might cost me a little time. It might cost me a little money. There's some kind of a sacrifice necessary for me to actually get to the point of organization. And how am I going to manage that? Because I can say that if you've been in business a long time and you haven't been organized in this particular part of the business, you've had that barrier all this time. And whatever the cost to you is of getting over that barrier, either you've chosen not to pay it up to now, or you didn't know how to pay it right now, up to now. And so that's why you're still stuck where you are. So let's pull this down and talk a little bit about all of this. All right. So let me ask you this. Please put into the chat, when you think about organization, as we're talking about it today, we talked about budgets and goals and a whole bunch of things. What's one area of your business that you feel should be better organized? Please put that into the chat. Maybe it's budgets, maybe it's time, maybe it's CRM. What's one area of your business that you feel ought to be better organized? Checklist, budget, CRM, checklist, outreach plan, time blocks, CRM, procedures. Great, outreach plan. So Daniel Rebe, could you please come off mute, and I have a question for you.
Good morning, David.
Morning, Daniel. So let me just ask you, you mentioned that outreach plan. Why is it that you feel your outreach plan needs to be better organized? Like, what's the evidence for you that you need to do that better?
My team leader and I have been working on my outreach plan for quite a while now, and I feel as though when I come through with what I'm supposed to do with it, it works. But then when I need to move that from an area to the next one, so like for a specific event that we're targeting, I want to create an outreach plan, and I'm just finding out that the footprint for the previous outreach plan doesn't work because it's a complete new demographic. So I'm having trouble sticking to it because it doesn't resonate. So that's where my trouble is.
Got it. Thank you. So it sounds to me like you're in the middle of a strategy to address that gap, and you haven't yet found the perfect formula given the new demographic. But great. I'm glad you're in the middle of it. I'm glad that you're working towards it. For those of you who just put something down on the chat here, is that something that's a struggle for you and you've never really bothered to do anything about it? Or it's something that you've worked really hard at, but you just haven't found the way, like Daniel's talking about here? That's something to think about here, right? It could be that you never bothered because you didn't know it was important, or you just didn't know how to go about it. Could be, on the other hand, that you've tried some things and you haven't found the success that you're looking for. Thank you, Daniel. So let me ask Miriam, please. Miriam said time blocking. I know you've been in this field for a while, Miriam, and you're a pro, but let me ask you, what's the challenge for you around being effective in organizing your time blocking? Miriam, can you come off mute? Miriam, are you there? Going once, going twice. Okay, oh, Miriam, are you there? There you go. Yes. Sorry, caught you in the middle of a movement there.
I'm in the middle of breakfast. I was keeping to my time blocks.
Now, what is the challenge for you in keeping to your time blocks? What gets in the way of you doing that?
Life gets in the way.
So do you actually put time blocks into your calendar?
Yeah, and then I don't do them.
Okay, got it. So to some degree, you're getting organized. You're actually thinking of the time that you need to complete a certain task. And do you identify a specific task when you put those time blocks into your calendar or not? You just block the time.
I assign tasks that's probably not specific enough.
Okay, got it. So you're putting some time into your calendar to say, I need to do something important here. Maybe you have some kind of an idea of what you're going to use that time for, but not necessarily 100% clear. Is that correct?
Yeah. And
Okay.
sometimes I'm looking at it and it's like, it's like,
Yep.
There's other things that happen and.
Yeah, got it. Okay, thank you. So that's a pretty common occurrence. I'm glad that you're putting something into your calendar. That's a piece of this here. You know, to be effective in organizing our time, we need to make sure that we're using each bit of time in our calendar for a specific effective purpose. And so one step is to think about what is it that I need to do and how much time do I need, and then to get that into the calendar. I recommend that you consider putting those time blocks in a different color in your calendar from everything else, because it's a reminder to you that those are specific times designed for a specific purpose. And these could be routine things. Maybe it's making calls on a weekly basis. Maybe it's answering emails on a regular basis, or whatever it is. Nothing wrong with having a regular routine time in there, like your calls for CSC, for example. You could find a way to show up for those. And so you could do a different color there. The other thing I want to say to Miriam and to everybody is, she said life gets in the way. This is the biggest challenge that we have with time blocking and making that part of our business organized and purposeful. The challenge here is that something happens and comes along and takes us out of our intention to use that time for something important. Now, we recognize two different types of disturbances that prevent us from following through on our time blocks: interruptions and distractions.
Yeah.
An interruption is when something drops in your lap that's urgent, that needs to be dealt with right now, that you didn't know was coming, and a big problem pops up with a deal, or your child falls down and she's bleeding and needs to go to the hospital. Those are interruptions, and that is about life happening. Absolutely. On the other hand, there's a different kind of disruption that we call interruptions and wow, why am I forgetting this?
Distractions.
Disturbances, thank you. Interruptions and disturbances. A disturbance is when you actually choose to not follow through on something, even though you could have. So if you say, I want to use this time now to make calls, but I'm going to actually use the time for something else, even though something big didn't necessarily happen. That kind of a disturbance is a distraction. And that's the word, distraction. That kind of a disturbance is a distraction. A distraction is where we choose to apply our attention to something else rather than what we originally decided. And here's the point, folks. 95% of the time that we don't follow through on a time block is because we've chosen not to, not because what's happened is so, urgent that we need to deal with it right now. And so that kind of a disturbance or that kind of a distraction is the one that eats up all the time. We may say to ourselves, it's really important for me to get this newsletter out now, or it's really important for me to work on this branding material right now, or whatever it is. But what we're actually doing is just distracting ourselves. We're saying to ourselves, for whatever reason, I choose to have my attention over here rather than over here. And when I ask clients, what's the number one reason why you don't follow through on calling people, even though you've set the time in your calendar to do so? They always say the same thing. Always. It's, I don't know how they're going to react. They won't remember me. I'm not sure what to say. Will they think I'm pushy or salesy or something like that? And so what's happening is we have a dialogue going on in our head that's kind of in the back of our mind, which is, I'm uncomfortable to make these calls now. So to get away from my comfort, I'm going to redirect my attention over here to my newsletter or my marketing or something else that could be done at any time, but I didn't specifically block this time for. And so those distractions are fundamentally very different from the interruptions. And so when Miriam says life gets in the way, that's what everybody says. And it's true, life gets in the way. But we have to understand that most of the time we're making a specific choice to move away from whatever our habit or routine or time block was at that particular time. And so this is the same pattern that will probably repeat itself over and over and over again, unless you make a substantive shift in your mindset. And that's what we're talking about on the last page of the slides there. You need to ask yourself, what is the barrier or the gap that's getting in the way of me organizing my CRM, or, clarifying my goals, or clarifying the roles of people on my team? All these things are crying out for organization. And the only way they're going to happen is if you do the work, right? The mental work of clarifying it in your mind and then setting it up and following through. It's really hard to do. Let me ask somebody about a CRM, because this is another very common one. Is there anybody on this call who doesn't think that it's important to have an organized CRM? Never met a professional agent yet who didn't think that way. So the question for me is, why is it such a challenge? So let me pull up someone. Brandy Bashinsky, please. Brandy, you happen to be one of the folks mentioning CRM. Can you tell me what's the challenge for you regarding being organized as you ought to be with your CRM? Can you come off mute, please, and let us know? Brandy, are you there? Brandy, are you there? Going once, going twice. All right, let's hear somebody else. Shanna Young, please. Same thing. You said CRM. Can I ask you, what's the challenge for you in being as organized as you think you need to be with your CRM?
My challenge is not everything about it, but there's a certain section and certain program within the CRM, and I always have a challenge. But like you said, it goes right back to the previously what you said. It is all, honestly, it's a personal excuse of copping out. I want to make this many calls to likely to sell, and this is a pipeline prospect and not my active client. I have a good relationship and everything going, so that's on a different priority. So that's my hang up.
Yep, got it. Thank you for sharing that. I'm sure other people can relate to that. These, I find overwhelmingly, folks, that there's only a few common patterns in all these cases. Like if you think you have a unique challenge with your CRM or something, I guarantee you everyone else is probably, some large percentage of everyone else is in a similar place, which is why I suggest that you consider discussing this with someone else. One way to break through that log jam in your head is to get it out of your own head, is to have a conversation with another person that you respect, maybe someone in this community, an accountability group, or just somebody you know, and talk it through and say, you know what, I've got a real problem with this. Can I just share it with you? And you don't have to ask them to give you the answer or solve your problem or anything else. But sometimes just getting it out of your own head and talking about it with someone else creates some kind of a movement. Whatever you get back from that person in that conversation, wherever that dialogue goes, often leads to some kind of a small awareness or some kind of a little bit of courage to take it on in a different way, some way that you shift your own mind. Ultimately, so much of your success depends on your mindset. Everyone knows basically, how to do the things that you have to do over the course of a particular deal. And, you're all very good at this. You're all professionals and you can nail 90% of these tasks quite well. But what gets in the way more than anything else is our mindset. And so certainly that's why we speak of these things here. But it goes back to that basic tenet of this principle. If you can't find what you're looking for in 30 seconds, you're not organized enough. And so if you know that the problem is that you don't know enough about your clients, you don't have the right contacts, it's something with your CRM, that's where you need to work. So follow those 3 steps I suggested, or reach out to someone else for some input. You don't have to even get the perfect answer, just have the dialogue. And you're on your way to creating a little bit of a step forward in one of these areas. And by the way, if you found that those areas that I listed before, like you're not as organized as you'd like to be in more than one of those, like maybe all of those, that's fine. Don't worry about it. It just means you have a lot of potential to run your business better and get more out of the business, whether it's profit or joy or service or whatever it is that you value the most. All of that's waiting for you if you can stay focused on organization. So thank you, everybody, for this morning. I want to just do one little shout out. At 10:30 this morning, we're going to have a session on launching a great toy drive with Chirag and Melissa Rubin from MJR Group in Miami. 10:30, you should have had, the invitations have gone out already. You should have one. Look in your email for invitations from us. Let me see if we can post this one. Okay, great. So the link is posted right there in the chat. Please join us at 10:30, where Chirag and Melissa will be talking about some great events that they've had, organizing toy drives for kids. I know about both of the cases that they've done things. They're really good at it. It's not as difficult as you think. It's a really wonderful event, provides great value to the community and great visibility for you as a professional member of the community. So have a great day, everybody. Have a great week. Look forward to seeing you again next Wednesday.